A political assassination triggered one of the biggest mass killings in history, the Rwandan Genocide. On April 7, 1994, a government-backed campaign of mass killing started in Rwanda. The aim was the ethnic cleansing of an empowered minority group. Hutu extremists massacred hundreds of thousands of ethnic Tutsis and their Hutu sympathizers. In the next 3 minutes, we'll briefly cover how the genocide unfolded and look at how Tutsi-Hutu hate was fostered by colonialism. Within a span of 100 days, at least 800,000 people were killed in the most rapid genocide ever recorded. During this period, 6 people were murdered every minute. Dead bodies were piled up on roadsides as people were encouraged to kill their neighbors, women were raped, and even the lives of children were not spared. The killing spread to all corners of the country and the violence unfolded before the eyes of the international media.
This is what so much of Rwanda has been turned into. Houses, villages deserted, every few yards a dead body, and everywhere the stench of death.
The world knew what was happening, but Rwandans were left alone by the international community to face this dark chapter in their history. But the ethnic divide and hatred that fueled the genocide did not come from nowhere. It has its roots in Rwanda's colonial history. Rwanda is a small country, nearly 5 times smaller than New York State. It was colonized by Germany and Belgium and then gained independence in 1962. In 1994, its population was estimated at 7 million. 85% was from the Hutu ethnic group, 14% Tutsi, and 1% Twa. Hutus and Tutsis are 2 distinct ethnic groups, but they have a lot in common. They speak the same language, live in the same areas, and adhere to similar traditions. But disagreements between the majority Hutus and minority Tutsis had grown substantially since the colonial period. When Belgian colonists arrived in 1916, they radicalized the differences between the 2 groups. They established an official register classifying Rwandans according to their ethnicity and pushed racist theories of the supposed genetic superiority of Tutsis. They classified people according to stereotypical physical features, and everyone was given a racial identity card based on these classifications. These pictures of a Belgian specialist in the 1930s show how craniofacial and body measurements were done to ethnically classify Rwandans. Later, these classifications became instrumental in identifying and killing Tutsis during the genocide. The Belgians favored Tutsis and considered them to be closer to Europeans and superior to the Hutus, guaranteeing them better jobs and educational opportunities. This discrimination gradually led to resentment among the Hutus, culminating in a series of riots, killings, and the mass exodus of Tutsis to neighboring countries. After Rwandan independence in 1962, Hutus won the country's first elections, reversing the power dynamic. The regime that followed was staunchly Hutu nationalist, and in the following decades, periodic violence continued. In 1990, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, a rebel army mostly comprised by Tutsi exiles, started launching attacks from Uganda, with the aim of replacing the Hutu-led government. In 1993, after a period of conflict, a peace accord was signed between Rwandan President Juvenal Habyarimana and the RPF, but the agreement failed to stop the violence, as many on both sides disagreed with it. The events of April 6, 1994 were the final nail in the coffin. President Habyarimana, a Hutu, was killed when his plane was shot down in the capital Kigali. Although responsibility for the attack was never confirmed, extremist Hutus saw this as an opportunity. The Rwandan Presidential Guard immediately initiated a campaign of retribution. The slaughtering of Tutsis and moderate Hutus began. Extremist Hutus known as the Akazu managed to take over key positions of the government and initiate ethnic cleansing throughout Rwanda. Hutu militias, Interahamwe, went village by village, slaughtering Tutsis with guns and machetes. Citizens were encouraged to join, and militias used a radio station to exhort people to go out and kill their neighbors. The human cost was huge, bodies lined the streets, hundreds of thousands of children were orphaned, and a hunger crisis struck refugees and the displaced. The genocide had ended with the RPF overthrow of the Hutu regime in July of 1994, but it left a lasting impact that spilled over to neighboring countries. The United States actively discouraged the UN Security Council from authorizing a more robust deployment. In April 1994, UN peacekeepers on the ground were reduced to a mere 260 after peacekeepers were killed. And even when the violence escalated, the deployment of further forces was delayed due to US Army resistance over matters of cost. Years after the Rwandan genocide, former US President Bill Clinton admitted that his failure to act in Rwanda was the biggest regret of his presidency, and that if troops were sent to Rwanda sooner, 300,000 lives may have been saved.